Hello everybody, it's Liam from RITF Gaming, and today I thought I would start Jag Month, properly, because I announced it a good few days ago and I haven't really done too much with it as of yet. I haven't really been doing much other than working on the videos that I'm going to be doing later in the month, but I thought I should get something out of the door. So today, if you haven't read by the title, I'm actually going to be talking about a system that was never actually released by Atari, that was a planned console they were working on whilst they had released the Jaguar, called the Atari Jaguar II, a follow-up. And I didn't really know it was actually a thing. I knew people had spoken about it before, but I didn't know it was actually a genuine thing that was being made, being developed by Atari at the time that they had the Jaguar out. So I was kind of fascinated by that and started reading into it a little bit on the Wikipedias and everything like that. And it actually made some really fascinating reading. And I'll tell you why, because it was a system they were planning to have backward compatibility with the Jaguar and the Jaguar CD. So obviously we can tell from that it's going to be a CD-based system, which made sense for the time because the system was being developed sort of 94, 95. Stuff like the Saturn and PlayStation were out. The N64 hadn't arrived yet. It was a good business move on Atari's part to therefore base their new console, the new Jaguar, on a CD-ROM drive being its primary source of the data information rather than being the add-on, which we all know obviously is the Jaguar CD. But it wasn't that so much that was interesting. Obviously it is still interesting that they has a CD-ROM drive, but nothing mind-boggling. For me, it was more the performance, what the Jaguar II was going to be capable of doing, and how that might fit in to the Jaguar market. Now, the system was cancelled. Sorry, released. I wish it was cancelled in sort of 1995, when things started going badly for the Jaguar, and they realised, well, it's not quite going to be as good as we thought. But what I thought was really, really cool was the tech specs. So, looking at what it could do is obviously still had the similar sort of architecture type with a central processor that would support and tether all the other processors that were dotted around the machine. So it still had like a blitter chip, a separate GPU, etc. If you don't really know what I'm getting at this point, check out the Jaguar. Check out the Jag video that I do a Jag review when I talk about the technical specifications of the Jaguar in that. So a bit of shameless plugging there. But it was just what it could do that really, really got me wow. Because reading it was a 33 megahertz processor, the title around. It's the same as the PlayStation 1, by the way, folks. And that's powerful. Comparative to the Jaguar, which I think has a 68K running at less than that, or whatever it is. And obviously then you had the GPU. Now the GPU, which is really amazing for me, was capable of rendering 750,000 polygons per second. Now for me that sounds really, really cool, because when you consider the PlayStation can do about 150,000 realistically to keep the frame rate at a decent level, that was just I'm not sure what the Jaguar is capable of doing, but I know it's a lot less than that. It might be 50 to 75,000, I think, if you want to keep a decent frame rate. It could even be less than that, I'm not entirely sure. But I was like, that would have been more powerful than anything else on the market at the time. And then I was just like, why didn't they release that? Why didn't that... I know funding was tough for Atari. And so it got me kind of thinking about how that system would have fit into the market in the first place, and when a good time would have been to release it. Because it's clearly a powerful machine. It's more powerful than the PlayStation. It's more powerful than the Saturn. It's going to be more powerful than the Nintendo 64. I'm not sure how much Atari knew the Nintendo 64 was actually capable of doing. But, to be fair, it's got the power. But would this have actually made a difference to Atari? Because I was thinking to myself at first that they should have released this instead of the Jaguar. And then made this the Jaguar, the CD-ROM only, 750,000 polys, look how powerful this is. This is, like nothing you've ever seen. Even if we were to take a realistic performance approach and say that 750k is probably at maximum with a low frame rate, and assume that therefore it's a draw distance. Let's call it 650k for a standard sort of game that isn't pushing hardware. That's still 3-4 times more than the PlayStation and Saturn were really sort of capable of, and about 3 times more than the N64. So that's pretty cool right there. Plus, obviously, that's a fully shaded and texture mapped polys as well, not just regular ass polys, not flat shaded kind of things. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, actually, it probably mightn't have made much of a difference, and here's why. So, if they'd have tried releasing it after they had the Jaguar out, the Jaguar was discontinued in 1996. Let's just assume, for the basic purposes, they discontinued the Jaguar, did like a Saturn on it, and just shoved it out the door. 1997, let's say, if they want to get a good launch and a decent amount of games on board. Next year, or 2 years, sorry, you're going to have the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast is going to have millions of polygons, like millions and millions of polygons. And let's be honest, if they released it after the Jaguar, it probably wouldn't have done too well anyway, because the Jaguar hadn't done too well and got a bit of a bad rep for not being 64-bit. I mean, it's a kind of debatable point. I don't think Atari should have actually marketed the Jaguar like that, but that's for another video. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at is the Jaguar II would have been kind of swamped over and sort of irrelevant in a year or two. And just as we've seen people do with the 32X and not adopting that because it's going to be irrelevant in a year or two. I mean, the Saturn's coming out in terms of the 32X, so it would be for stuff like the Dreamcast with the Jaguar II. I mean, let's assume that they're not just targeting the 250,000 or so assumed fan base that the Jaguar has. Let's say they're trying to target more people. Those people are going to be rational customers who are just going to turn around and quite simply go, but what's the point? Because the Dreamcast is coming out in 2 years. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm being overly negative. And then I was trying to think of how that would work out if they'd released the Jaguar II as the regular Jaguar instead. And to me that makes a lot more sense, because the Jag 2 would have made the system, as in the Jaguar, as if they'd released it as a regular Jaguar. I think it would have made it a lot more of this is the choice to have. Because that would have outshadowed anything that Sega were doing, that Nintendo could do, and that Sony had managed. And that would have made those systems a lot weaker. Even if it had come out a little bit later, I still think this should have been something that Atari would have done. I mean, I know they couldn't bank on the same sort of strategy that Nintendo could. Like, yeah, wait for this, because this is a powerful system. But I just thought it was fascinating that Atari had this in the works, like the Panther. Maybe if they'd gone with a 32-bit system, marketing it as a 32-bit system, and then seeing how that turned out, then pushing out as a 64-bit system, and really sort of the Jag 2, that is, to say, and saying, this is power, lads, this is where it's at. I think Atari's fortunes could have been a lot different. I mean, obviously, you would have still needed to get people on board that were kind of interested in getting the 3D games, the games that were pushing boundaries out of the door. But I just thought it was really fascinating that Atari had all of this in the works. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to cover in another video, pretty much straight after this one, actually, to be perfectly honest, where Atari were just, like, making all this really cool stuff for the Jaguar and how much potential the Jaguar has. Because it's something the Jaguar fan base is particularly sort of key on, is that there's so much untapped potential that our system has that we'd love to be able to utilise that, and that's why there's probably a strong homebrew. I mean, it's probably one of the big reasons anyway, why there's such a strong homebrew community to this day. I just found it fascinating. The Jag 2 was clearly powerful. It was cancelled because there wasn't the funding. If Atari had focused on that in the first place, I think Atari's fortunes could have been a lot different. And it sounds really fascinating. Well, this is a genuinely powerful sounding system. And even if you just went really negative and just went, well, it's even with the tech specs, they're probably really ambitious. It's probably not going to be anything near like that. Even if you assume that it's still at 500,000 polys, that's still like 2-3 times more than whatever systems were sort of knocking up against comparatively. I just think that if they'd have done that, they would have had the hardware. And then what would have let them down is kind of what sometimes let them down with the Jaguar, which is to say that they didn't have the software, like Syndicate, games like Bubsy. I mean, I like those games, but the problem is they are 2D. They kind of look 16-bit, let's be honest. They're probably 16-bit with a 256 colour palette. on the screen out of 16.7 million. It's like, yeah, thumbs up for trying and getting the software out, but at the same time, we don't want Dino Dudes, we don't want Syndicate, we don't want Bubsy, or we do, but we want their more 3D games, and we don't want shit ones like Checkered Flag, which is a really bad game. I don't like it at all. Missile Command 3D, Alien vs Predator, Tempest 2000, we're happy to have those kind of games, those 3D style games, but we want more. More like that. I mean, you know, something to think about would be like Resident Evil. Resident Evil on Jaguar. It's like, it's one of those things where you just think there's so much untapped potential this system has, and it's a genuine shame that Atari didn't focus on that. I mean, the Jaguar 2 would have been the Jaguar 2 would have been so much better if it had been just the regular Jaguar, and if they'd have marketed that as a 64-bit system. I think that would have been a lot more believable. Atari's marketing strategy wasn't going to work out with the regular Jaguar, unfortunately. But, you know, it's all just speculation. We're never actually going to find out, which is a massive shame. I would have loved to have found out how powerful the Jaguar really was. But thank you for watching this. It's not probably a very good video, perfectly honest with you. I think I lost track of what I was saying a couple of times. But if you did like this, or you know, liked where this was going, then good news, everyone, because there's going to be some videos with a better direction, including reviews of individual games on the Jaguar and the CD unit. Of course, I had to review the CD unit. I've just got it. So if you like this, then you know, like, subscribe, because there's much better content coming. I just wanted to get something out of the door to be like, I did a bit of an Atari, didn't I? I just wanted to get something out of the door to be like, there we go, Jag Month is on. So thank you very much anyway, guys, and I will see you definitely in the next video. Hasta la vista, and goodbye.